All right. So this is another talking head rant video, and I got some stuff to say. So there's some stuff I've seen being talked about online a lot, and it has to do with this idea of the movie star, and in particular, the death of the movie star, and how essentially you don't have any actors nowadays that quote unquote sell tickets, right? This idea that a movie is sold alone by the fact that the actor's in it. Probably one of the greatest examples of this is when you look at an actor like, say, Will Smith in the 2000s. He had a string of movies in a row from maybe 2002 to 2008, where it didn't matter what movie he was in. If you knew he was in the movie and it was summertime, you were going to go watch it. It didn't matter what it was, but you were going to go see that actor in the movie. And you sort of had different actors for different genres, right? You had like Jason Statham, for example, who did a bunch of action movies. And I mean, he's still around now and still doing similar kinds of action movies. But again, there was this idea that the entire industry was based upon these individual stars that would be marketed in different ways. And that ultimately the movie studios in particular would focus on these stars, sort of build them up as assets in a way, so that eventually they can be used to sell their movies and sell repeatable experiences essentially. And people would trust the actor. They trust the actor and trust the actor's selection of roles and know that as long as this actor's in the movie, I can essentially trust the production. And there's this thing circling around online. I think it stems from, what's his name? Anthony Mackie, and what he said about how there's no movie stars anymore, how you don't go see a, say, Chris Hemsworth movie, all right? You're going to see Thor. And yeah, I get that notion in terms of saying that people are more attached to franchises now than they are individual actors, as an example. But ultimately here, I don't think the issue is that, like, some of the things being brought up, for example, is that movie studios tended to invest a lot of money in building up movie stars and marketing people as a movie star. And this idea that they are no longer doing that is harming the industry. But if you look at that example, right, of this idea that people tend to sort of gravitate to a movie just because of the actor that's in it, and that ultimately, if you're not advertising that actor, then whatever movie they're in, people won't care about. I think it's false. We live in a day and age now where, I mean, people are on social media, regular people and movie stars in particular. And those movie stars do have social media followings. And ultimately, if a movie star wanted to market themselves as a star, they can still do it. And we do have movie stars that are doing that right now. Stars like Ryan Reynolds, stars like Dwayne Johnson or The Rock. So this idea that the movie studios used to market actors as stars and are no longer doing it, and therefore they're not creating movie stars anymore, I think is not a fair argument to be made. I think that the issue here is simply, well, I'll get to the reason why there are no movie stars, right? And sort of what are killing them. But if you look at it from this perspective, the fact that movie studios are not marketing stars is not the reason. And I'm going to get to the reason why I'm making this video and say what it is. I'm hearing a lot of chatter about franchises, franchise films, in particular, superhero IP driven films are actually what are killing the movie star. So this idea, for example, that people don't go to see Pierce Brosnan, they go to see James Bond. People don't go to see Robert Downey Jr., they go to see Iron Man. This idea that people are going to see the movie based upon the intellectual property and not the actor, and that the actor is just easily replaceable, and that ultimately it doesn't matter who you cast in the role. That idea is also false, because if you look at certain franchises where they just recast the actor, I mean, a great example is Anthony Mackie in his most latest movie with the MCU, where he is playing Captain America. And what happens there? Captain America gets recast as a different character, and no one shows up to the film. You have Black Panther. one of the most popular Marvel movies, superhero movies ever. And the character is essentially recast, but it's a female character. It's a different character in the film, but ultimately it's the same franchise. It's the same marketing. Everything else surrounding it is the same, right? And yet the movie does not do nearly as well. And just as a whole, if you look at almost every superhero movie in the early 2020s and mid 2020s, a lot of those have bombed as well. And this is with the same actors, nothing being recast, and those movies doing terribly. So this idea that people are going to see the movie because of the franchise or the actor within the franchise or whatever it is, it's not actually what's going on. That's not why people are choosing to go to the movie or not go to the movie. And it's also not why actors are dead, or I should say movie stars are dead, right? What killed the movie star is essentially the same thing that killed the superhero movie or is killing the superhero movie. And that is bad movies. See, the movie star is not dead. It's the movie that is dead. This idea of going on the weekend to watch a movie that is going to be worth your time. That simple concept has died. And that's why we're seeing the death, for example, of movie stars. Because what you're having here is, if you go back to my Will Smith example, let's say you're this young kid, you're in the 90s, and you go to a movie to watch Men in Black. It's fun, it's enjoyable, you like it. So then this other movie comes out later on that also looks interesting called I Am Legend. You go watch it, you're like, oh, this is pretty cool. And you notice that in watching that movie, the same actor that you liked in Men in Black was also in that movie. And then guess what? The following year, he has another movie coming out called iRobot. Now, I'm probably messing up the chronology of these movies, but the idea here is still the same. You had an enjoyable experience with the previous film, and then the subsequent films that you have are enjoyable experiences. Therefore, when the next movie comes out, you're excited to go, and that sells the tickets. So it looks as though the actor themselves is the one that is flat out selling the tickets. But the reality is that the experience of the film is one that is not only enjoyable, but it's something that is bankable. It's something that is reliable. You know what you're going to get from it because you know what you're going to get from that actor because you know what they're going to produce. So that ultimately is what built up the movie star. Yes, the studios did what they had to do, but ultimately a star was a star in part due to their star power, but also in part due to their ability to actually perform in a film and for the film to actually be good. And that part is really important, for the film to actually be good. Because if you look at, say, the modern star, you have someone like Chris Hemsworth, who might be the biggest star to come out of the last 10, 15 years, one would argue. The one that would be, top billed, one or two on most of the movies that he is in outside of the Marvel Cinematic Universe are just not enjoyable films. They're not enjoyable for his main audience that is from the MCU, that know him from the MCU, but overall it's not enjoyable for just the mass market. So at the same time that he was doing something like Thor, he was also doing Snow White and the Huntsman, which, I mean, who likes that movie? If you like that movie, please leave a comment. Tell me why you like it. Because ultimately, the quality of the movie was terrible. And it's okay if you have one or two movies that are bad. People forgive you for that. But when every single movie you're in outside of your Thor and Avengers movies are just bombing and tanking and not effective at storytelling, not effective at character writing, grabbing people's attention, what ends up happening there is you lose that star power. It's just gone. And when you have characters like, say, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson or Ryan Reynolds, one thing you'll notice about those characters or those actors and why they're probably the closest thing you have to a movie star nowadays is because the experiences that they are in are heavily tailored by themselves and those experiences themselves are actually predictable. You know what you're going to get out of a Ryan Reynolds character before you even watch the movie. You know the tone, you know the jokes, you know he's basically playing Ryan Reynolds. And it's the same with The Rock. You know what you're going to get from a character being played by The Rock. He's going to be snarky, there's going to be some action and some jokes. You just know that's going to come out of that character. So what you get there is a sense of reliability from them in that the things will be good. And if we flip things around now and you look at sort of where the blame is being focused on when it comes to the killing of, say, movie stars and it being a franchise film, the reason why franchise films are what they are is because you know what tone you're going to get. You typically know what type of plot you usually are going to get from those types of movies. And the reason why that's important is because you have that expectation set for the audience. It's reliable. So people would go into a Marvel movie knowing what they're going to get from a Marvel movie. But ultimately, the execution on those expectations were met by those movies. And because that happened, what ends up happening is you get repeat viewers. Now, what's interesting about the last 15, maybe 20 years of TV shows and movies, actually, that's been happening, and this probably is the thing that is killing the movie star in this case, is that a lot of movies nowadays are trying to do too much. They're trying to subvert expectations. They're trying to flip characters around. They're trying to deconstruct too much. They're trying to switch around different archetypes that don't need to be moved around. And what ends up happening is that they're playing around with things that ultimately they haven't figured out well enough to deliver upon. It's like when you get a cake recipe and you know how to build the cake. And every single time you can build that cake the way it should be. And all of a sudden you say, hey, let's deconstruct this cake. Let's try to make the cake, but without the frosting and without the sugar. And let's see if people still like it. Or instead of sugar, why don't we put spice in the cake and see how well that sells? But what's happening here is this is being tested out with audiences in real time. And what's happening is that you're getting these horrible experiences from these movies because they're doing these things that don't necessarily work out. It's like if you went to McDonald's and you're looking to get a burger and for whatever reason, they got rid of the cheese and you were looking for a cheeseburger. And the next time you're eating it, it's still a cheeseburger, but instead of American cheddar, it's Havarti. And you're like, oh, that's kind of cool. Let me go get that Havarti burger. You show up the next time and instead of a Havarti cheeseburger, it's blue cheese, but you ordered a cheeseburger. And essentially that's what's happening here with a lot of the movie making that's happening is that you have all of these artists who are experimenting. And from those experiments, you're getting poor quality characters. It's why you get this brooding Superman movie rather than the Superman movie everyone expects to see and wants to see. It's why you get a Ghostbusters movie where all of a sudden everyone is switched out in terms of the cast and it barely resembles at all anything from the original. What people like to see sometimes is a happy ending. Sometimes people just want to see their expectations met within a film rather than those expectations being subverted. So what you have here is on one end, you have your movies that are supposed to be the most artistically sound films. Those movies are doing a terrible job of actually being good films because of the deconstruction and just the way in which the stories are being told. Then on the other hand, you have a situation where the other movies that are playing it safe and that are not taking risks are sequels or sequels upon sequels that come from different franchises. And even with those sequels, that same element is being added in there where they're looking to maybe deconstruct the franchise in a different, interesting, modern way. And again, you're getting the same problems here where ultimately you're not baking a cake anymore. You're not giving an enjoyable experience for the viewer. And what happens when you get burned once and twice and thrice? You stop going to the movie, regardless of which star is in that movie. So ultimately, here, what's killing the movie star is the movies and the movies that they're in. If the movies increase in quality, if the movies actually execute in a manner in which people expect a film to execute upon, then what you get from that is repeat viewership. What you get from that is excitement and stardom from the different people in those movies. It can and will come. But when we're delivering, or when I should say the industry, Hollywood, is delivering what they're delivering and what they have been delivering over the last few years, that's what ultimately tanks the movie star to where stars don't even want to participate in any of these movies because the scripts are bad. The scripts are terrible and they just don't want to make those films and they're moving to streaming movies. So it's just a situation now where, for whatever reason, we're in a place now where studios are doing a terrible job at giving people what they want to see. It's crazy, but that's ultimately what's actually killing the movie star. Because if you could get a couple movies together that are successful with the same actor in all those films, people would be excited to see that actor in the next film that they're in. But at the same time, if you drop the ball enough times, it is what it is. And I think a great example of this, and I'll end with this, is Robert Downey Jr., probably the biggest actor in this superhero era that we just went through, did a couple movies outside the MCU as well. And I think he had the Sherlock series. And even in that series, at first, people came along and enjoyed it. It was good. But once the sequel came out and subsequent movies he did after that, because they weren't to the quality that people expected from a Robert Downey Jr., what ends up happening is that they don't want a sequel. And even Robert himself decides to not choose those roles anymore because he knows what will come. And he becomes very selective with the roles he will pick. I think Oppenheimer is one of his most recent ones that he did because, again, he knows what movies to pick.